What is the single worst movie you sat through hoping it would get better, but didn't? The Last Airbender, the movie. It's been 10 years and I still become enraged when I think about it. Aragon edit, obligatory thanks for the awards. So much hate for something that doesn't exist. Fantastic Four 2015. That movie is a dumpster fire of epic proportions, but I wanted to see what they did with Doom, so I stayed till the end, but they ducked him up 2.edit, 2 instead of 2. I struggled to finish that movie, previous Fantastic Fours were better. Frown. The first two were bad in a fun way. 2015 was just kinda depressing. Artemis Fowl. What an absolute clusterfuck that movie was. Disney just skullfucked the source material to death and then set fire on the body. I haven't watched Artemis Fowl, but I have enjoyed watching YouTube reviewers losing their shit talking about Artemis Fowl. The Artemis Fowl butchering is sufficient reason to bring back corporal punishment. Nothing major, but a pinky or two. I once mixed up corporal and capital punishment in my high school psychology class. I couldn't apologize enough when I realized I had been talking in support of killing kids, and not just spankings. I guarantee you that your teacher was secretly thinking duck yes. Y'all ever seen Slender Man? Absolute shit show. As soon as the credits were rolling in the theater, a guy in the back yelled, "Well, that was shit." I agree, there's nothing interesting in that movie. You should rather go watch Marble Hornets on YouTube if you are interested in good Slenderman content. Marble Hornets was terrifying. Until episode like 185 or something, when it was 3 months between releases, and I couldn't keep track of what the hell was going on. There is a video with the whole series. It's around 8 hours long if you want to watch the whole thing easier. Mean Girls 2. Thought it was going to be like the first one, ended up with a Walmart version. There's a Mean Girls 2? Unfortunately. Allegiant. Nothing actually happens in the film. I could have watched paint dry for 2 hours, and it would have been a more productive use of my time than watching that film. Super disappointing, especially since the first 2 films were fairly decent. They actually didn't finish this series because the rating for it was so bad. There was talks of doing it as a TV mini-series, I do believe, but that was kicked to the curb as well. Edit. Wow guys. Thanks. My most upvoted comment was about a great book series made into shitty movies. Didn't Shailene Woodley say if it went to cable she was out? I thought that was what put a bullet in it. Took the family to see it because the kids read the books. You're right, it was just plain bad. To be fair, the books fell off a cliff as well. The first one was a passably decent teen dystopia tale, but the second was confused in what it wanted to be, and it just kept getting more and more muddled and weird as the pages turned. I intended to read all 3, since I enjoyed Hunger Games. I stopped reading halfway through Allegiant. Transformers, The Last Night. For a movie that's called Transformers, they sure do put a huge emphasis on everything except them. Optimus is in the movie for like 8 minutes, and it's painfully long. I almost walked out watching this movie. I was on a plane. Downsizing movie for me was a huge disappointment, though the idea of the movie was nice and new. It turned to be very slow and boring. Was it just me, or did that movie feel like 2 totally separate movies in one? And they have no connection between them. You try to follow the plot, then forget that they are downsized until they walk by a giant water bottle or something. The new Dolittle movie with Robert Downey Jr., the climax of the movie is him pulling a bagpipe out of a dragon's ass. I was just sat there like, who approved this to be made? Pulling a bagpipe out of a dragon's ass. I have never wanted to watch this movie more than right now, but I feel like I'd be left with more questions than answers. Right? That sentence just made me determined to go watch this travesty just to watch that scene. Especially since Op used the term climax in relation to reaching into a dragon's ass. 365 days. It got worse. Are you lost, baby girl? I seem to have a foggy remembering of a Percy Jackson movie coming out at some point, but I don't really remember much. Don't try to remember. It was bad. Having read the books first, it was bad. BF said he liked it, having not read the books. As an aside, he explained what he could remember of the second movie, and I learned that the movie books 2 to 5. Cats. Just yikes. I watched it 3 times in one weekend. I'm convinced I Manchurian candidated myself. Years from now I'll be out at some political event, and someone will pass me a gun and say, "The Jellicle moon shines tonight." Then I'll take the gun, and reply, "Jellicles do because Jellicles can." And then I fire. Full disclosure, I was then and am now on edibles. There's so many movies on this list where I'm thinking, how did you not know that was going to be awful? As a former Blockbuster employee, you have no idea how bad the average person's shitty movie radar is. I know people who automatically gravitate toward the shittiest movie in the theaters. I don't know how they do it. Titanic 2. Not the parody that appeared last year, but the 2010 feature film for which I would love to see the manager. n.wikipedia.org Wiki Titanic film, edit, for all who commented this is also a parody, that doesn't make it any better. Wanna watch a good bad movie? Go see Iron Sky. Holy shit, what? The company ended up making the Sharknado series in Nation and Black Summer. They've come a long way. Jack and Jill. Wasted an hour and a half of my life that I'll never get back. It takes a special kind of bad to sweep the Razzies. Adam Sandler won Worst Actor and Worst Actress for that. It also won Worst Film, Worst Screenplay, Worst Screen Couple, Worst Director, Worst Supporting Actor, Worst Supporting Actress, and Worst Ensemble. That movie really broke a lot of records. The Last Airbender and Suicide Squad. I went back and watched both because I thought maybe I was being too harsh on them. Nope, they still suck. I love how you hated them so much you had to double check. You know how sometimes you watch something and you are in a bad mood? I thought maybe this is what happened. Not the case. 50 Shades of Grey. I am waiting for the movie to get interesting, turns out it's just porn. Bad porn at that lol. They're basically like Peter Griffin writing a porn. Also, love Gilbert Gottfried reading lines from the book. The Dark Tower. The only reason I didn't leave was cause I was in southern Florida for a trip and went to the movies to get out of the heat for a while. The movie AC was the only good thing I found with that movie. The makers of that movie have forgotten the faces of their fathers. A Wrinkle in Time. Only reason I sat through it was that my brother watched it and said it was decent. Something weird and unusual happens for some reason. Then something unrelated, weird and unusual happens for some reason. Repeat 5 times. The end. Nothing seemed to connect or have reason to it. The Happening. Nothing happened. Edit, thanks for the silver, friend. I've never actually seen this movie, but because it's responsible for this moment, it has such a special place in my heart. Independence Day, Resurgence. What a clever premise. We adapt their tech to advance our civilization and can stand a chance when if they return. The movie was shit. I want to see the story of the African tribes fighting a brutal, decade-long war against the alien survivors of that huge ship and ending up with a mountain of alien skulls. That's far more interesting than whatever the movie was actually about. I highly suggest reading the in-betweener book called Independence Day Crucible. It lays out the 20 years between 1996 to 2016 and goes into the stories of those secondary characters like Jake and Mbutu in the African Ground War, and what happens with David Connie, and also explains the fate of Steve Hiller, Will Smith. It was such a cool gap filler to the train wreck of a movie that Resurgence turned out to be. That novelization is also 10x better than the movie itself and has a completely different, awesome opening sequence. Holmes and Watson. This is one of the rare movies listed that I can personally understand and relate to. Most listed are just blatantly bad movies from the jump, zero hope that they would be anything near good. One person posted Battlefield Earth, Lamau. Like no. That was never going to be good in a realistic sense, but I'm approaching gatekeeping here, so I'll get to the point. Holmes and Watson is shockingly bad because it's made by and starring people that usually make good comedy. It was expected to be at least an average comedy movie and it is truly unwatchable. It's just so bad, and not in a good bad way like Battlefield Earth or any just bad like every Adam Sandler movie made after 1998. HW should have been good, and it's truly shocking in how unfunny it is. I kept waiting for it to turn the corner of have some deep, Kaufman-esque reveal that would show how the previous hour has been one long build-up to a punchline, anything. Something. Yet, it just ended after a truly miserable 90-ish minutes. It felt like a 4-hour movie, the mark of a truly bad film, haha. I convinced my parents that we should go see it for our annual Jewish Christmas tradition of a movie and Chinese food. The trailers were pretty funny. The guys in it have made some great movies in the past, so it should be good. Nope. The 3 jokes in the trailer were the only 3 jokes in the movie. It was just awful. At least the Chinese food was good.